Hello and welcome to another episode of Pick 3 DST, where I give you 3 defenses I like and 1 defense I'm fading for Week 8 of the NFL season. Before we get into our picks for this week, we'll start with our accountability check for a solid Week 7. Our stud defense, the Cleveland Browns, had 16 points, despite giving up 38 points in that game, which is just another reminder to us that points allowed and yardage allowed doesn't really stop a defense from putting up a good fantasy score. We also got a solid 9 points from our sleeper defense, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and 6 points from our solid defense, the Tampa Bay Bucks, so nothing really to complain about there. However, the defense that we faded, the Baltimore Ravens, throttled the Detroit Lions, so we did have a big miss there. However, we avoided another injury scare, so perhaps that curse is over. As a reminder, please pause this video, comment below, let me know which defense you're starting for Week 8, or ask me any start-sit questions, and I'll get to those as the week goes on. We'll start, as always, with my sleeper defense, which is the Seattle Seahawks. Consensus has them at 12th, but I have them up at 4th this week. They get a pretty solid matchup against the Cleveland Browns offense that gives up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing defenses. Jerome Ford also sprained his ankle last week and is likely going to be out, and Kareem Hunt was already playing at less than 100%, so he's going to be potentially banged up in Week 8 as well. Deshaun Watson also came back last week and then got injured again, so he's now considered day-to-day, so we don't yet know if it's going to be Deshaun Watson or PJ Walker under center, but regardless of who starts at quarterback, the Browns offense has been pretty giving as a fantasy unit to attack. And then the Seahawks have been pretty good in their own right. They rank 3rd in knockdowns, which is quarterback hits plus sacks. They rank 10th in opponent scoring rate, and they rank 13th in passes defended rate. So it's a pretty solid defense that's just outside the top 10 in a good matchup, which I think will vault them into a solid top 5, 6 ranked defense this week. My solid defense of the week is the New York Jets. Consensus has them 6th, but I have them up at 2nd on the week. Now, we know the Jets have always had an elite defense, but they've been held back by their offense early in the year since the offense wasn't able to sustain drives, was keeping the defense on the field a lot and putting them in some bad situations. However, that started to turn around a little bit of late, and the Jets have been really good at getting pressure on the quarterback, ranking 3rd in pressure rate and 5th in knockdowns. Now, they get a matchup against the Giants, who give up the 2nd most sacks in the NFL and have the most fantasy points allowed to opposing defenses. So we really like the matchup. Right before the bye, the Jets held the Eagles to just 14 points and picked off Jalen Hurts 3 times. So this is a defense trending in the right direction in a good matchup. And there's word that the Giants could start Daniel Jones under center. And now it seems counterintuitive that getting the starting quarterback back could be good news for a fantasy defense. But when Tyrod Taylor is under center, he's a pretty cautious quarterback. He doesn't take a lot of chances. He does throw the deep ball, but only when receivers are open. He doesn't really force things, and he tends to avoid sacks better than Daniel Jones has so far in his career. So Daniel Jones back under center could actually be a decent thing for the Jets offense, or really doesn't hurt them. Sorry, the Jets defense, or really doesn't hurt them. So we still really like this play this week. If you want to see my full weekly DST rankings, you can click that link below, and I'll be updating those rankings as the week goes on and we get more information on injuries and weather, etc. My stud defense of the week is the Kansas City Chiefs. Consensus has them 4th, but I have them 1st overall this week. This Chiefs unit has been great so far this year. They rank 2nd in pressure rate, 2nd in opponent scoring rate, 6th in explosive plays allowed, 7th in knockdowns per game, and 8th in turnover rate. So they're a top 10 defense across the board, pretty much any way you slice it, and now they get a Broncos offense that gives up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing defenses. So I really like this matchup for the Chiefs, and I see them rostered in under 60% of leagues over on ESPN and some other sites, so they really need to be picked up, and I will play them with confidence this week. One thing to keep an eye on for this week is that the Chiefs just announced that linebacker Nick Bolton underwent surgery for a dislocated wrist and will be out for up to 2 months. Now, I'm not sure that's going to really impact them this week, and it might take us a couple weeks to really see how that impacts this defense, but the Chiefs have moved up to 1st overall for me in my BOD rankings for the season, so I really do want to see how this injury impacts them throughout the rest of the year. Now we'll end with the defense that I'm fading for this week, and it's the Detroit Lions. Consensus has them up at 8th, and I have them 11th. So this isn't really a big fade, but it is just a way to talk about a defense that's going to be elevated high in rankings due to matchup that I'm a little bit cautious about. The Lions right now rank 11th in explosive plays allowed, 13th in pressure rate, and 13th in turnover rate. So they're just outside the top 10. So we'd be moving them into the top 10 based on matchup against a Raiders offense that does give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing defenses. So all of that seems to line up. However, we really do want to be cautious about elevating teams too high just because of matchup. It didn't work for the Raiders last week. It didn't work for the Dolphins 2 weeks before that. So we really want to make sure that we're looking at the whole picture for a defense and not just saying, oh, they have a good matchup, I like them this week. The Lions have been a little bit enigmatic on defense, super inconsistent. They really didn't show up last week against a Ravens offense that hadn't been looking explosive early in the year. So I have the Lions ranked 11th because I think that they're a solid play. I just think that there's a little bit more risk to this play than people are letting on just because they see the Raiders as the opponent. That's going to do it for Week 8. Please click below to like and subscribe to get all of our fantasy football and football content for the rest of this year. You can click the link below to see my full weekly DST rankings, and don't forget to comment to let me know which defense you're rocking in week number 8. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Pick 3 DST. Good luck on Sunday.